Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of the Intro to Python seminar. My name is Professor Ryan Ammons, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of our wonderful team at Nova, in particular the systemic program, at least one of whom is in the audience as a co-host, Lance. Can you guys all hear me, by the way? Just a quick check. Excellent. Alright, I'm getting lots of thumbs up. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, you can open the participants window and see voting options. There's yes, no, go slower, go faster, dislike, like, clap, need a break, away, etc. I tried to do some polls, but kind of ran out of time. I just got out of another class. I see lots of names here that are very familiar. That's cool. So maybe that's for those of you who are new to hearing my voice. That maybe is a good sign that I have several former students having participating, and that there's in no way any bonus credit or anything being given. So this is purely out of their own free will. So I got a question just now, whether or not. So basically, I've decided since the session is pretty large, everyone is automatically on mute, but I have tasked Lance, the representative from the systemic program, to be the one. If you raise your hand, that's one of the features. Raise your hands. You should have that in your participants window as well. He will unmute you, so you can ask a question. And you're free anytime to ask a question in the chat. I'll try as best I can to keep an eye on that so that I see it. But if I miss something, he'll hopefully catch it. So Lance, you're with us, right? You're good?
Yep, I'm here. I got you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. All right. So looks like everybody's here. So what I'm going to do is I've already posted a link a couple times. Is everyone able to access that link and get those instructions? So I'm going to open that up on my own machine, and if you didn't see it or get it, what is this? So there's me. There's my ugly mug. I'm not big on video, so I didn't actually do video for this, like a webcam video. I mean, switch screens. So yes, maybe you've already figured out there's going to be lots of maybe funny, we'll see, corny entertainments. This is me, so my background is in the law and as well software engineering. Honestly, I have more experience in software engineering than in the law. And I've been teaching at Nova for 3 years now, and I'm full-time faculty as of just last semester. I'm really happy to be here. And this particular picture, by the way, is from Nova STEM Day at Alexandria campus from 2017. Yeah, I think it's 2017. Yeah, different times, right? Different times. So, with all that out of the way, let's continue. So if you went to that link that I provided, it essentially goes through this setup, and I didn't want to spend too much time going through the setup process and eat up an hour, because an hour is not really as long as I ever think it is. Maybe that's partly because of the legal background. I like to hear the sound of my own voice, so they say all lawyers do. The getting started. So you want to go to repl.it, repl.it, so Romeo Echo Papa Lima .India Tango. And you can either log in with a Google Gmail account, if you have to know what GitHub is, one of those accounts, or your Facebook login. And for the teachers in the audience, for now, I guess you could check I'm a teacher, that's fine, it doesn't matter which one you do.
you need to share your screen. We didn't see.
Oh my goodness, sorry. There me jumping ahead of myself. Apologies. Yeah, I'm an IT professor ostensibly.
There we go. Yep, I see it.
So yeah, I'll go back to the first slide. So there's me. Like I said, the picture. Thanks so much, Lance. Appreciate it. That's from STEM Day 2017. I don't look much different now, but no need for you to see me live. Let's focus on the content, not my face. And again, presented by Nova IT, but also let's see, I got a chat. Yes, rookie mistake. Indeed. Totally. So is everyone, I guess, thumbs up or yes if you have been able to go to the site and set up an account, which is, alright. Does anybody have a problem doing that? Because I want to take care of that as quickly as possible, if so. Because you'll need to, it's not really much setup involved. You don't need to install anything. You just need to be able to log in and use this software as a service. Alright, looks like the only feedback I'm getting is positive. I'm going to assume everyone else is doing okay until I get notes otherwise. Excellent. Thank you. Alright, so this would be what you see. Once you get into Replit and log in, you'll have a similar looking dashboard. And what you'll want to do is create your first REPL. Just as a side note, and it may be of interest to some people, REPL, there's a reason that term is used for this service. It stands for read, execute, print, loop, which is what an interpreter does. An interpreter is a piece of software that translates code that we read, like we'll be doing in Python today, and it converts it into machine code, which is something the computer actually knows how to execute. That process is necessary because even though coding, you may look at code, the code you'll see today, you may be thinking, wow, this is really complicated. Why can't the computer understand this? Believe it or not, what the computer understands is very limited. I'm getting someone say they don't have audio. So is anyone else having an issue hearing me? No. Yeah, I don't know what the issue there is. Sorry. Maybe try some settings changes or refresh or restart Zoom. Apologies. Zoom honestly is not my favorite. I don't know if you guys have noticed in the news, but it has lots of security issues. And don't worry, shouldn't have a problem with that here today in limited time. But yeah, it is what it is. So going back to this, so an interpreter basically takes the high-level code, which Python is a high-level language because it's closer to English than it is to machine code. And the interpreter reads that code. It executes whatever it needs to in order to fulfill the command you've given it. It prints out some kind of output, and then it loops. Loop meaning it just goes back and starts over. So it reads, executes, prints, loops, back to read. So that's the reason it's named REPL. I always think it's easier to understand and remember technical things if you have some kind of narrative story to hang your hat on there. Alright, so you'll want to create a new REPL with the button in the top right, plus new REPL, so that's creating a new REPL. And then select or type in the box for the language, Python. There'll be several different things called Python, but we're going to use the one that just says Python. That's because they support different versions of Python, and they support different frameworks of Python, one of which is actually a gaming framework called Pygame. If anyone's interested in learning about how to make some simple games using Python, I find, by the way, games are the most interesting way to learn languages. That's how I teach C++, which I'm teaching currently. So just let me know. Send me an email, etc. once you choose the language, you'll get a generated name, which will be some funny, random 3 words concatenated or glued together. Concatenate, by the way, is a technical term in programming for putting strings together. And it's per Silicon Valley fashion, they can be quite funny, which hopefully our little Mad Libs project that we're going to do today will follow the same trajectory. So is everyone able, at this point, next slide, this is it, I'm sorry, I talked right ahead of myself. Click create REPL, and then you get this, I got unhappy waterlog QBasic, which anybody knows what QBasic is. It's probably not a lot of you. It's a little old at this point. You want to click create REPL once you have Python, and again, you don't have to rename this. You can choose a name, or you can leave it whatever it currently is. Once you create REPL, wait a few moments. It may take anywhere from a few seconds. It should take more than 10 or 15 seconds at most to bring up a screen that looks like this. So, thumbs up. Oh, I gotta clear the vote and do everyone who is not at this screen or something looking like this with a typing area and a dark sort of console terminal run Python in it area. Anyone who is not seeing the screen, could you indicate just, yes, that you are not? Maybe no, just say no. Whatever you'd like to put in. If you are at this point, don't react at all. So I'll take abstentions as indication that you are to this point. I'll give about 10-15 seconds here to make sure everybody's up. And anybody who wants to text me if they are, that's fine too. Alright, so gonna assume everybody's here and we're ready to rock. So before we do that though, it is imperative, I think, to talk about the context of Python and programming generally, because I think at least a few of you probably, hopefully, are thinking about using this professionally or maybe in the future, sometime down the road after you get out of school, or you are in a job, or unfortunately during circumstances having to transition, Python may be something you would like to learn in order to further your career. So a few points. Python has become incredibly popular. It's been around for quite a while, 20 or some odd years, but it really didn't take off until the last 5, give or take, years. It's relatively easy to learn, and when I say relatively easy, I mean versus a Java or C++, which I assume at least a few of you probably heard of those languages. And just as a marker of its popularity, I put some statistics on here. So in terms of where it is in comments and questions that are related to Python on Stack Overflow, which is a very popular website for programmers to go and ask questions and interact with each other and try to solve problems collectively. It's fit, which is pretty high for any language. If you don't know this, there are major languages. There are dozens, and there are actually hundreds and even thousands of languages, but there are probably only 30, 40, 50 tops that are widely used. On GitHub, which is a place to share open source projects and code, a place you can go to find the code for any kind of project you could pretty much think of, and just download it and run it or change it. It's fourth. It's fourth, which I would imagine Java, C or C++, JavaScript definitely would be a little above this, but that's for a general purpose language, it's very high. And then, if you want to, obviously, not right now, considering our pandemic situation, meetup community, if you're familiar with Meetup, that's where the digital world, reverses into the physical realm. So you can meet people in person. Of course, like I said, not really appropriate at the moment, but maybe, cross our fingers, at some point in the relatively near future. It has the third largest meetup community. So there's a lot of people you can actually go and talk with at some point in person and get information about and geek out over Python. So in terms of usage, just like I said, it's a general purpose language. So you can use it for web development. The most popular framework is called Django. Data analysis, which maybe some of you career-oriented folks have heard about. There's things like NumPy, which is numerical Python library. Pandas, which is it's a mix of machine learning and data analysis tools. Artificial intelligence, which is a big thing these days. TensorFlow and PyTorch. Those are two machine learning AI framework libraries. And then there's scientific computing. There's SciPy. There's tons of other frameworks, right? This is not the only, by any means, this is not an exhaustive list. And then, of course, I mentioned PyCame earlier for game development, simple things like that. And there's tons of others. So if you're interested in that, send me an email later or ask me at the end. All right. So usage in industry generally. Here is a breakdown. This is from Stack Overflow survey. I believe this was 2019. Forgot the date on there. It should be 2019. JavaScript is by far the largest. That is the most widely used language right now in the world. That's pretty much everything you see in your browser. Anything you use on the web that is interactive is using JavaScript. HTML, CSS, that barely qualifies sort of as a language. It technically is a language. It has the L in it, but it doesn't really do any functional. It doesn't have any functionality or behavioral components. It's merely a formatting and structural tag document creation system. SQL, very popular. That's a database querying language, structured query language. I also teach a couple of courses on that include SQL. It's actually really easy to learn. It's even easier than Python in a lot of ways. But it's it's purpose built for querying data from structured data sets from databases. And then you have Python at nearly 40%, which is pretty good because this is a professional developers, by the way. So not all respondents. These are people actually working in the industry who have a job and they get paid to code. Java, C#. Java and C# are kind of interchangeable. Java is more widely used. C# is essentially Microsoft's implementation of Java for all intents and purposes. And if you ever heard of PHP, that's a server programming language that pretty much runs every blog and website you've ever looked at or seen. And Facebook was originally written in PHP, for instance. All right. So now, one of the more interesting things maybe is money. Right? How much can you make as a Python developer? This is 2020. Now, these numbers could definitely change given the current economic situation, but demand for system developers, programmers, and programming generally, software developers, engineers, etc., has in some industries seen a boost in demand in this crisis. Some maybe less. So I wouldn't venture to guess the exact statistics because there's too much flux at the moment. But these numbers probably are definitely reasonably accurate even. So if you look at our area, Maryland, DC, Virginia, DMV, you're looking at anywhere from around 100 plus $100,000 a year, and that's base salary. You typically get a really good benefits package as a developer. Oh, I got a question. Do they offer JavaScript as a class at Nova? There is at least one section of JavaScript being offered, but I don't know. It's not something that's regularly offered. I hope to get it on the schedule because it is a very, very obviously popular language. But currently, it's only offered if there's a special request by faculty. But we're trying to get that on. Just as a really quick side note, I helped to finish up and get in place a mobile app development certificate program, which you can ask me about later. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But we just, this semester, and it won't even be in the catalog until the fall catalog, offering a certificate in mobile application development, which will include Android, iOS, and then other frameworks for doing mobile app development. That's something we just were able to get through after 2.5, 3 years. So you can see it takes a while with the bureaucratic maze to get things in the curriculum. And of course, mobile app development is not something that new. Whereas JavaScript's explosion is probably newer. Yeah, it's definitely newer or more recent than the explosion of mobile app development. So we're working on it, slowly but surely. I think this crisis may actually spur some of that action. So I'm hoping that that's the case. So moving on, a little comic relief before we start the actual coding. So I love this. This is Cyanide Happiness. If you don't know anything about them, they make very macabre but very humorous cartoons. So I picked a subset of a particular cartoon I like to show in my programming classes. So this is talking about it's a metaphor of how languages relate to, say, if they were essay. If the student were writing an essay using the language or about the language. So for Java, he says, I'm 2 pages in, so I have no idea what you're saying. So Java being notoriously verbose, very lengthy to write, lots of code to do some, tasks that you wouldn't think would take a lot of code. So, C++ asks for 1 copy, not 400. I won't go into the tech details, but you can accidentally make lots and lots of things happen and really mess up your memory and cause your entire system to crash if you do the right or wrong things using C++. C, which is the forerunner to C++, and is now both C++, by the way, and C have had a renaissance because of limitations of hardware that we're running up against, physical, quantum, mechanical limitations on hardware that are forcing us to rewrite some things in lower level languages for performance. So, if you're interested in that, again, let me know. So this is great, but you forget to add a null terminator. Now I'm just reading nonsense. Okay, so in a string, which is a series of characters, these all would be strings, by the way. This entire thing would be a string. In the C language, to denote the end of a string, you must put what's called a null terminator, which is the character null. Null is defined as the absence of a value. It's not nothing, it's not empty, it's a very specific kind of emptiness. And if you don't put it there, it will continue to read on in memory, until it finds the null terminator, which generally means you're going to have random stuff in memory behind your actual string you want to see, and then you end up with nonsense. Alright, and now here's the kicker. Python. This is plagiarism. You can't just import essay. And this speaks to the relative ease of using Python. You can literally import a package and do something in just a few lines of code that would take you in any of these other languages dozens or hundreds or more lines of code to do. Now there is a trade-off, and it's mostly in performance. You get a lot of functionality, but you don't get performance. And in terms of, a simple program, just average benchmark, order of magnitude, probably 3 orders of magnitude slower than C, C++. Now Java somewhere in between, but it's much closer to C++ or C than it is to Python in terms of performance. So, hope you get a little comic relief out of that. Alright, now what you all been waiting for. So, the only thing we're going to talk about today, I assume zero programming experience whatsoever. So, if you've never done this, don't worry. You're in good hands. Input, output, and variables are the only thing we're going to cover today. And that's all you need to make a simple game like Mad Libs. Print is the function. A function, recall maybe in math, if you've had it, some of our audience a little younger may have not quite had this yet. Algebra, I don't know. But f of x, you guys, most people have probably heard f of x. That's a function, right? F of x equals, say, x plus 1. So if I have f of 5, then it would be 5 plus 1, which is 6. You evaluate the function, right? So this is very similar. Computer science, by the way, is applied math, essentially. So print, the reason there's an open and closed parenthesis behind it is because it's equivalent or akin to the x, the f of x, right? So x being what's called the argument. You are arguing, you're yelling at the function to do something. You argue to it that it should take this value and do something with it. Now print takes multiple arguments, but by default, most of the time you'll see one argument. Here, it takes a string. I've talked about strings a few minutes ago, but I didn't really say a whole lot about them other than this null terminator thing, which probably lost most of you and maybe made some people roll their eyes. Hello world. Normally, the language would look at every single character. Remember, REPL, read, execute, the RE part of REPL. It would read through here to try to figure out what it's supposed to do. So every character has special meaning to the language. And I say the language because it's not the computer. There's a distinction there. The computer only reads machine code. So the execution part actually is interpreting. It has to convert it to machine code. We won't go there. That's totally a different lesson. If we extend this past 4 sessions, maybe we talk about that some. So print is the function that outputs or prints to the screen. So if you were to say, if you can do this on your system right now, in Replit, print, open parentheses, then open your string, and Replit should automatically, by the way, put a closing set of quotations, right? So you have a set of quotation marks, and in between them, you type in whatever you want, except for a quotation mark. Because the quotation mark, just like that null terminator and this special word called print, it means something. When you open these, when you start a quotation, it says, Python language interprets that as, okay, I'm going to start reading data. This is not executable. This doesn't mean anything like print does. It doesn't tell me to do something. It just means there's some data here, and I don't care what it is. I just need to copy it into memory. Or in this case, into video memory onto the screen. The kicker is, it's going to look for, to end that string, unlike C, it doesn't look for a null terminator, it simply looks for the other quotation mark. So the first quotation mark it sees after the opening, it stops. And then it takes all of that and passes it out to the video memory, which is displayed on your console. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, you know what? Let's go and do it. There's no better way, learning by doing, right? Make a new one. And we'll name it the Bold Chief Organization. I'll leave it at that. So, by the way, is this large enough for everyone? Can everybody see what I'm doing? Let's see, let me go ahead and change this. Make sure I usually use this zoom level for most of my coding classes. Because I assume that some people watching somewhat smaller screens than my 2K monitor setup, so I don't want to leave anybody out because they cannot read this on the screen. Alright, so we can just zoom in one more time. How about that?
Yeah, that's good on my screen.
Perfect. Alright. Everybody let me know if there is, an issue. So let's go ahead and just start typing. So, you can Alt-Tab or go back to you don't have this yet. I will put these, by the way, on that same site where you downloaded that I posted originally. So you'll have all of these slides. And going forward in other sessions as well. So we're going to do print. Right? And you'll notice it automatically knows, hey, that's something special. It picks it up and knows that this is part of the language and it means something. So open parentheses, you'll notice it puts the closing parentheses automatically. You won't get that in a normal basic text editor. This is the feature of an IDE, which is a fancy acronym for the fancy term integrated development environment, which just means that it's a text editor, but it also has language features and runs stuff for you. That's pretty much what an IDE is in a nutshell. Okay, so print, and then open quotes, and notice again, it is a nice IDE, so it will be nice to you and put the end quote for you and put you right in between them. And then between those, you'll type hello world. This is the canonical program, by the way, your first program. You can type whatever you like. It doesn't really matter except for a quotation. So let's run this first. And to run, you just click this big run button. And you'll notice it will run right there and it prints out hello world. Everybody able to do that? We good? Everybody following along so far? I know some of you probably have done programming and this is really, really slow and tedious, but again, I'm targeting this to people who've never touched a line of code in their lives. So I want to make it, as straightforward as possible. Awesome. It's all private messages. I know you guys can't see it, but many people are saying yes, got it, etc. If you have a problem, feel free to private message me. Yeah, the reason, Manuel said that press control, I use zoom in and out like this. The problem with that is, Replit, it starts to put the cursor visually in the wrong place if I zoom in. So I have to keep the zoom level as close to 100% as possible. That's the reason. Okay, so if everybody's got that, now, if I go back and say what I said not to do, is to put a quotation mark somewhere in it. First off, you'll notice, because this is a nice IDE trying to figure things out for us, analyzing the code as we type, we have a problem. And that problem is we've used a special character. Let's say I wanted to put hello world, and I wanted to just say world in quotations because I meant something different. Well, one alternative is I could put single quotes, and that actually probably makes more sense in this context. Hello world, that works just fine. But just say I just insist on having double quotes. Well, if I try to run that, it doesn't work. Invalid syntax is the error that I get, and it says it points to the first character where the syntax is invalid. Syntax, by the way, is another word for grammar, essentially. The grammar of the language. So the grammar of the language says you can't have some W character after a quote here. I don't know what to do with that, so I don't do anything with it. Alright? So how do we actually get it, though? Because we really, really want double quotes. Well, we use what's called an escape character. So we tell the computer, the language, Python, to ignore this particular quotation as a functional character and treat it just as a normal character, data character. To do that, all you have to do is put a backslash in front of it. Backslash, by the way, is above your enter key below backspace key. It's not front slash, it's a backslash. It's not the one with the question mark keys. It's the other one. So it's the opposite of what you would have in your URL or web address. Alright? And you'll notice it turns a nice little pink. And that indicates the IDE has recognized this as, oh, this is something special. So now let's do it for the other one, because we also need to do it for both. Each one needs to be escaped. Okay. And now we have no errors. Let's try to run it. There we go. Now we get our nice, beautiful double quotes without error. So that's how you put in, you can tell Python to ignore certain special characters and use them just as data. And you probably think, if you are, this is good if you're thinking this, but you might be thinking, well, what about a backslash? What if I wanted a backslash? Well, you put a backslash in front of a backslash, and you get a backslash. Run it. There it is. There's your backslash. So anytime you have a special character that would be interpreted as something functional, you merely put a backslash in front of it inside the string, which, by the way, is called string because it strings together individual characters. In memory, each one of these takes up one little place in memory, and it just continuously goes from left to right. These are actually all individual little characters, and it puts them together as a long string. Alright, so going back to this now, we can also get input. So we know how to do basic output now. We can output what we want. Hello world. Are you in quarantine as well? So you can type in whatever you want. We can do another print statement. And let's say 42 is the answer to the universe. I think it's 42, right? Run, and there you go. By the way, print automatically creates a new line at the end of the statement. So that's why it's not on the same line over here. You can actually change that. Advanced in line, the end character, and then put nothing. And if I do that, it actually puts it all on the same line because I told it to have an empty string, or like this, empty string, for the end of line character. But that's advanced. You don't need to do that. Just a little extra, a little bonus. Alright, so now let's go to input, because it's not very useful of a program if it just outputs stuff. I mean, it may be, but generally not so much. So how do we get input? This is how we get input. It's another function. Print is a function. Input is a function. So input, let's try it out. I'm going to put, comment these out, by the way. A comment is something, this tells the language to ignore these lines. And it's kind of funky right now. Replit will do that sometimes. There. So it should gray it out when you do it. And a quick way to do it is, by the way, is control front slash. You'll toggle on and off the comment for the line. But it's a hashtag for Python. Other languages use different comment symbols. What this says is, this is for humans to read, and don't pay any attention to it. Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. That's what this is for. So I'm going to comment this out, and what that effectively does is if I ran it, it's going to do nothing. Because these will not get executed. So that's a comment. So, just to get rid of it for now, the output, let's do input. And let's do the example here on the screen. Input, type your name. Okay, so let's say input, and then you'll notice I get this nice little drop down that tells me something about this function, because it recognizes it. It says read a string from standard input. Standard input is it can mean different things, but in our case, standard input is the keyboard. Don't worry about the trailing new line of script thing, but just ignore that line. It's a little more advanced. So the prompt string, you can pass in an argument. Remember, argument is what we're arguing to the, yelling at the function to use. Remember that. Prompt is a string. Remember, we've covered strings. They're just data that's inside quotation marks. If it's given, so you don't have to put a prompt, but it is handy to, because you usually don't want just a cursor blinking at the user. They usually need some kind of instruction, like, hey, enter your name, or enter your age, or enter your password, etc. Just a blank blinking screen will usually end up with frustration and IT support calls, or, broken systems from frustrated users. So, we can put a prompt here, and to do the prompt, we just put quotes and say, please enter your name, or whatever you want to put. And I put a space here, I just out of habit, so that the cursor, the blinking cursor waiting on the separated from this prompt. So let's run that. And it says, please enter your name. Notice we don't get the little orange symbol that is the prompt, the command prompt at the end of the program this time. If I press enter, you'll see, there we get it back. Program's over. Notice also run. When I run it, it's still running. That's why you have a stop button. It's because it's waiting on input. And this isn't a blinking cursor, I apologize. Normally it blinks, but in this particular terminal it does not. So I'm going to enter my name, and I'm going to press it. Well, that's not very useful, is it? And the reason it's not very useful is because it stored it in memory, but we did not tell it a specific place in memory to store it, so it essentially got thrown away. But we don't want to throw away things like this. We want to keep them. We want to save them to use later. Okay. So how do we do that? And we'll talk about this on the next slide in the wrap up in the next 15 minutes. Input your name, and you can set a variable. A variable is just a placeholder for something. So we can hold strings, we can hold numbers, we can hold all kinds of things in a variable. And it's called a variable, by the way, because its value can vary. It can be changed. There are things called constants, which cannot change, but a variable can change. So we have name here equals, this single equal sign here means set what is on the right to what is on the left. Assign the value on the right to the variable on the left. So let's just try it, because that may be abstract and not make any sense. So let's do it. So I go to the first of the line, and I say name space equals, but you don't have to actually put spaces, but it's easier to read. Name equals input, please enter your name. Okay, let's run it again. And I get the same thing, type my name in. We're going to do that. I got a question about how do we print a name along with a message. See, that's what we're building up to, because Mad Libs, right, is replacing things in the script. So we're going to do that. That's the end game here. No worries. We're getting there. Just a few minutes away. If I press enter, I get the same output though. However, there is something different. You just can't see it as the user. And that is, this variable called name now holds, well, it doesn't anymore because the program ended. But as long as the program was still running, it had this string in it, Ryan. How do we get that out? There we go. This is it, right here. We want to actually print what the value is, what is inside of this variable. You can also think of a variable as a shoebox or a pigeon hole or cubby hole or some storage container. It's a container for values. So let's do that. Let's print. And then instead of a normal string, which is called hard-coded string, which is just a literal value, instead of that, we can pass as our argument to the print, which is what we want to print, as the variable name. Notice that it also knows that there's a variable called name, and it will finish it for you. This is called autocomplete. I can do that, and since that is using your arrow keys, you can select it and press enter. It will automatically finish it for you. These are standard development tools for programmers, because we hate typing. Programmers are lazy. Seriously, software developers are very lazy by nature. I think it's probably not humans just generally, but software developers very specifically just a lazy kind of bunch. I manage a lot of it, so I can speak to that pretty authoritatively. All right, so print name. Excellent. So I got somebody saying it worked. So now what we do is say run and type in the name and press enter. And it prints out what was in name, which we put, whatever you put in should be printed out. Everybody to that point, because now we're going to speed up a little bit, and I'm going to give you a link to something. Because I don't want you to type everything in by hand for this Mad Lib. But we basically have the components now. Actually, one more thing before we do that. So say we wanted to put hello, comma, whatever your name is. So to do that, there's a couple of ways. There's a couple of ways to do that. The simplest way to do it is to just put multiple arguments. You can put as many of these separated by comma as you want in a print statement, and it will just print them all together. So, just as an example, so print, and then open quotes, close quotes, right? So in between the quotes, say, hi, comma, and that's it. Because this comma means, okay, now I want to print something else. And we print whatever's in name. So it should print out hi, comma, whatever you type in. So let's do that. Run. Ryan. There you go. Hi, Ryan. Or hi, whoever. Whatever your name is or whatever name you put in. Now, the more proper way to do this is to use what's called string interpolation, which is a fancy term for replace stuff in the string with formatted text. Okay, so forgetting the complex name of it for a moment, we do print, and we can put in quotes, say we hi, comma, and instead of leaving it at that, we put %, which is shift 5, and then lowercase s. Now what this says is, okay, Python, I have a string that consists of the literal capital H, the literal lowercase I, the literal comma, the literal value, space, oh, and here's a special character. Just like the backspace is a special character, the % sign is also a special character. And if you want a % sign, remember, same rules apply in terms of escaping. However, this is what we want. This means we want a string to go here. Now, how do we get a string to get itself to insert it there? Okay, now here's where it gets a little complicated, but not too much. Just follow me. Key for key. Okay, type this along with me if you can. Right after the end of the quote, put a % sign, just like the % sign in the quotes, and then space. Again, you don't have to do space, but it's much easier to read. Then you want to have another parentheses, which is shift 9. And it should automatically give you a closing parenthesis. And inside of that, you put what you want to replace that %s with, which in our case is name. So we type name. And I'm going to comment this line out. So this should not execute. We should only see the result of this line and this problem. So let's run that. Is in your name, Ryan. Check it out. Hi, Ryan. It took name, and if you want to think of it, this % sign is the insertion. It took this and inserted it in to where there was a %s. And another beauty of this is, say we want to say age. So I say age equals, I want another input. Just copy and paste because I'm a software developer. That's what I did for most of my career, and I still do it. So I'm going to be lazy and copy and paste. So age, and I'm just going to put age question mark just because of time. And what if I wanted to show hi, your name, period, and you said your %s because we want. Yeah, you can definitely use the first one if you want. We're just separating by commas. The reason for using this is you're able to actually do formatting on each one of these in a more proper way, easier to read, easier to maintain way. So, yeah, you're free to continue to use the commas if you want. That's fine. Now, the code I'm going to send you in a second uses this, but I've typed it pretty much all for you. Okay, so you said your blank. Okay, so now what do we do? Well, we just put a comma here and then add age. So it will do it in the same order. It will replace them in the same order it finds them. And you have to always have the same number of replacement replacement pieces. As you have variables, or you can literally do this too. You can actually just put a string in, right? These are interchangeable. Just like I had name as the argument for print, I could also have a literal, which is just typing manually in the string. But I don't want to do that. I want it to be dynamic. I want it to be whatever the person types in, which here would be age. So it'll replace the first one with name, the second one with age, in the same order. Let's run it. Ryan, and we'll just go with 35. How about that? That's it. Enter, and it says, "Hi Ryan, you said you were 35. That's all there is to it. And you can hopefully see now, this is all you need to make a Mad Libs game. Because all it is asking some questions, right? And storing them in variables, and then having the Mad Lib template as a string, and replacing each one of those with the values that were given by the user. Alright, so now, I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat, and everybody needs to go to this one, and this will be the last 5 minutes or so. And let me know when you guys are here. Yeah, just put like a yes mark when you get to this point. It should open up and create a copy of it in your own account as soon as you open it. So I'll ask it in the enders. Who is not, to this point, who is not able to open this reference? Terry, question? So raise your hand for a moment there. I'm not getting any other feedback. So I assume everyone is to this point, is seeing this on their own screens. Yes. Oh, and if you wanted to look, I'll do this later. This was supposed to be a funny joke, but we kind of ran out of time. This is duck typing, quack quack. So you don't have to tell Python the type of variable. And in fact, we'll talk about this next week in a little more depth. You can explore it on your own if you want. Integer is a whole number, essentially a string. That's what we've been talking about. Boolean, which is a true or false. Float, which is a decimal number. You don't have to tell Python what the values are. It will try to figure out what they are on its own. Which means that's one of the reasons it's slower and less efficient. And that's called duck typing. You're probably thinking, why is it called duck typing? That's very Silicon Valley, right? It's because if it quacks like a duck, there's a saying, right? If it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. So in other words, if it looks like an integer, it's an integer. If it looks and acts like a string, it's a string. If it looks and acts like a Boolean value, it's automatically a Boolean value. The Python, the language, will figure that out and assign the type, because data types are actually still inherently valuable and have to be used in the background. And in other languages like Java, C, or C++, you have to explicitly tell the compiler, this is an int y, this is a string x, this is a Boolean Python school. Well, true or false? I'm not going to ask whether or not this is a true statement. Alright, so we should be to this point, and we're nearing the end of our time. I apologize for that. But this should be getting you on your way, and you will be able to finish this, if not in the session, probably won't, between now and next time. So that's your homework. So let's go ahead and get started together. I've essentially given you the template here. By the way, if I just run it, check out my new mobile app. You can use it to search for the best bolts in Arlington. It tracks how many times you sit in a minute and shares that information online with your friends and family. Plus, thanks to an intuitive, user-friendly interface, even Bob won't have trouble using it. Download my new app today on your Android iPhone or even your refrigerator, because your refrigerator probably has an internet access system and uses Android for some good experience. Anyway, we want to do in the last 2 minutes is I'm going to get you started. Okay? And to get you started, we're going to use these comments here. So this page, I just had a question. This page is a link that I provided. I'll do it again. I'll paste it again. So you need to go to that URL in your browser, and as long as it should open up directly so that you can see everything. I just posted it privately, so I can do that. There. Okay, so since I've got like a minute and a half left. So plural noun. Remember how we got input? We go back and look over here, input, etc. Right? We need input. So let's do the same thing here and say plural underscore noun. Now, variable names are very specific. You can either do this or an underscore this. You can't have spaces in your names because remember I talked about special characters? Well, a space is a special character for Python. It means I'm done with what I just did and I'm moving on to something else. So that's not what's going on here. This is all one thing. So if you need spaces, either use an underscore, which I prefer because I'm from the database world, and that's called underscore case, and some people weirdly call it snake case. That's definitely new in Silicon Valley-ish in the last few years. But there's also camel case, which you'll see a lot. Which the reason it's called camel case is because it looks like humps on a camel, right? Every word except the first one is capitalized. So then you can see more easily where the words are delineated. So that's camel case. But I'm going to use underscore case. So plural underscore noun, and you can name it whatever you want, X, Y, or noun. Noun 1, for instance, noun 1 would be fine. You can't start with a number because that's a special character. You see it has a highlight. It's in color. But any, pretty much A through Z, capital or lowercase, you can start with, and you can have a number in the variable name. So plural noun equals input, and then we want a prompt that says plural noun, or whatever you want to put in. For time, since I'm basically out of time at this point, I'm going to say plural noun. I'll hit enter. Why not? Enter a plural noun. Okay, so that'll prompt the user to enter a plural noun and store whatever they put in this variable called plural underscore noun. Alright, now let's do one more. I know I'm over time, but I want to give you at least a couple of examples to run with here. So I'll put place. So place would be the name. You can't have, by the way, two variables name the same thing. Because the compiler, or the Python interpreter gets confused. It doesn't know which one's which. Right? Two people with the same name kind of deal. So we'll call this one place, and it'll say enter a place. And that's the only ones we're going to do. I'll leave the rest of them to you. And the only thing we need to change down here, I've done this all for you, essentially, is to replace these literal strings in the replacement part of the print statement. Right? You need to change that, say, from volts to, in this case, this is where the plural noun goes. And you'll notice it already found plural noun in the code, so it offers it to us as an option, and you can just press enter, and it will type the rest of it for you. So you don't mistype, because if you type one letter off, it doesn't work, because computers are dumb. Right? They're very literal. They're very, very literal. Everything matters. In fact, let me try this. Oh, that doesn't work, because capitalization matters. It has to be exactly the same capitalization too. So in this case, all lowercase. But if you put capital P, for instance, I would have to change this also to a capital P for it to match. And hopefully you do get, in a helpful way is what I'm trying to say, you get this feedback from these, like in Word or any other word processor, this squiggly underline indicates there is an error or a problem. So plural noun is the first, and then the second is a place. So let's replace the place with place. And to do that, I just type in place, and we'll leave the others, because you'll need to finish these under each one of these, right? With the same pattern as I've provided for these two. But let's go ahead and run it, and then that'll be the wrap up. So run, and enter plural noun. Okay, so somebody from the audience. Let's do it from the peanut gallery back over there. Give me something. Give me a plural noun. Something safe for work, I guess. But, plural noun. Anybody? Anybody out there? Dogs. Alright, dogs. Dogs it is. So I got dogs first. I'm going with dogs. Dogs. I thought out a place. Hawaii. Alright. Hawaii. Alright, press enter and check it out. Check out my new mobile app. You can use it to search for the best dogs in Hawaii. There you go. And you can see, hopefully, that's the whole point of the exercise. We'll see how well it works. Based on your questions and feedback, I'll send a survey out, etc. For feedback and changes and whatnot. But you can see how this would work going forward. So all you need to do is add, say, her, right, equals input, and then if you want to give a prompt, put a prompt, whatever you want. As long as it's a valid string, it doesn't have no invalid characters. Then unit of time, first appliance, etc. And then you would replace each one of these incrementally with those variable names. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to join us for this session. I really hope you'll join us again next week as we explore in more depth another feature of this language and all languages generally, which will be conditional or switch statements. So if, else, else. So we can make decisions based on user input, not just input and output. But we have to start somewhere, and this is a good place to start so you learn about basic variables and how to use I/O, input, output. So are there any questions? I heard a question from a very young member of the audience. I'm sorry? Yeah, I can't really make out what the question is. Okay.
Sorry, Ryan, I unmuted everybody to see.
Okay, yeah. Oh, good. No worries. I've actually been recording. I don't rely on. Let me go ahead and close this out. That is the